Today, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments on birthright citizenship. They seem divided, and they also heard arguments on universal injunctions. Boy, this may be one of the most important stories we have seen in this country, one of the most important stories in 100+ years, and the top trend on X is Director Comey, the former Director Comey. He posted a picture of some seashells. So that's the news we're leading with, because a lot of people are freaking out. The left is claiming it's nothing, but former FBI Director Comey posted 8647, an image. Of course, 86 can mean many things. It can be interpreted as get rid of somebody. It's also been interpreted as ending someone's life. For this, there is actually an investigation happening. We'll see. I really don't think anything's going to happen. But on the right, basically all the Trump supporters are saying you can't allow them to do this stuff. Now we've got a bunch of prominent liberal personalities also posting 8647. They're doing this because they want to defend Comey, because 8647 can be interpreted as a call to action and direct threat. However, if all the liberals start flooding it, their mentality is, no, see, it's just a protest phrase. Perhaps like kill the Boer or something. Just a protest song. Doesn't really mean anything like that. So we'll talk about that. And we got another story that Wisconsin judge who helped that criminal alien escape. She's claiming immunity. Indeed, she's saying she is immune from prosecution, just like Trump is. That's actually the argument. So we'll talk about all that. But before we do, we got some great sponsors for you. We got Hillsdale.edu. I'm a big fan. Have you guys ever heard someone say, either in an internet clip or on TV or in your own life, something like capitalism is evil? How did you respond? And when did capitalism become so controversial? Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses. That's right, free online courses. Learn about the United States Constitution, the stories in the book of Genesis, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church with Hillsdale College's free online courses. I know all you men out there want to know about Rome. Now's your chance. Hillsdale recently launched a new course, Understanding Capitalism, that you should definitely check out. In 7 lectures, you'll learn about the role of profit and loss, how human nature plays a role in our economic system, why capitalism depends on private property rights, the rule of law, and, above all, freedom, and why capitalism is ultimately a system that encourages morality rather than undermines it. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Tim to enroll in the course, Understanding Capitalism. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/Tim to enroll for free. Guys, seriously, it's free information. Check it out. It's great stuff. We got another great sponsor, too. It is, you want to get fit, my friends? You got to go to getjackedup.com. Look at this thing. This is Jacked Up Fitness. Very cool. They even accept Bitcoin. More and more Americans are prioritizing their health and getting back in shape. But diet and cardio alone are not enough. If you really want to build muscle and burn fat, you got to do strength training. That's why I'm excited to be working with Don and the team at Jacked Up Fitness. Their all-in-one home gyms are already best in class, and now their all-new X Series elevates home fitness to a whole new level. Ours is on the way, and we can't wait to get it set up. At the studio. Indeed, it's going to go on the roof. No joke. We were talking to them. Super excited to have this thing set up because right now we have kind of like a rinky-dink. It's no good. It's no good. This one's amazing. The Power Rack Pro X functional trainer lets you do hundreds of exercises. Basically everything you used to do at the gym, all from the comfort of your own spare room or garage. It also features a completely upgraded cable crossover system with articulating pulley arms, giving you unlimited width combinations to hit every muscle group. And if you're new to strength training, they offer a free Get Jacked Up program that has a full body video workouts. Simply press play and follow along. No more excuses, guys. You got to get to it. We did this during the election year, Fitcast. So I'm super excited. I'm all about, I burned 1,300 calories in my skate session today, always exercising. Go to getjackedup.com, sign up for the free training program. And when you're ready, purchase your own Power Rack Pro X using promo code POOL, P-O-O-L. Save 10% at getjackedup.com. Shout out. Don't forget to smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We got a couple of great guests joining us tonight. We got Tim Alberino.
Thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
I am a author, researcher, explorer, and a ufologist.
Ooh, interesting. Really?
Indeed. We
have another guest here, Rep. Burlison. Who are you?
I'm Eric Burlison. I'm the congressman from Southwest Missouri, and just happy to be here.
Now, not that it's your specialty or anything, but you did recently have, was it a hearing or an interview on on alien species?
Yeah, we've had multiple ones, yeah.
Multiple ones?
Yeah.
So it looks like we're going to have to talk about aliens, I guess.
if that's what you want to talk about.
We'll get to it. We got Mary hanging out.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Morgan, and you can usually find me on Pop Culture Crisis here at Timcast. We actually just joined Rumble. That's a new channel on Rumble. We're on both YouTube and Rumble, but we're trying to get followers over there. So go subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Rumble.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's the story from the Daily Mail. MAGA demands immediate arrest of former FBI director after he called for assassination of Trump. What did he do? He posted this image. It's some seashells that I'm pretty sure he arranged because he's got nothing better to do.
Totally random. What are you talking about?
He just stumbled upon this on the
washed up that way.
It's a natural rock formation. He called it a cool shell formation on my beach walk. Well, he's walked it back. He pleads ignorance, and let's see. Do we have his post here? I thought I had his post somewhere. I guess not. Did he? Here we go. Here it is. Comey, he took it down and said, I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. Well, indeed, he's now apparently under investigation. Christine Ohm says DHS and Secret Service is investigating this threat and will respond appropriately. FBI Director Kash Patel says we are aware of the recent social media post by former FBI Director James Comey directed at President Trump. We are in communication with Secret Service and Director Curran. Primary jurisdiction is with Secret Service on these matters, and we, the FBI, will provide all necessary support. Well, then you get Brian Krasenstein, who posts 8647, and he and others have just been spam blasting that message now. For those that aren't familiar, 86 could mean a couple different things. It basically means it's in some way remove someone to the light end, to the extreme end. It can be interpreted in many ways. If a server is at a restaurant and they say 86 the fries, it just means get rid of them. However, in the, I guess, mob lingo, when they say 86 the guy, it's usually a reference to murdering someone. So when James Comey posts 8647, that is interpreted as a death threat. And I doubt he'll get arrested, but I'm curious what you guys think.
He's so playing dumb. Like, if he thought it was a political message and that the numbers meant something political, what exactly did he think 86 meant? We know what he meant by 47, but what did he think of 86?
Yeah, he admitted that he knew it was a political message.
Right. So what did he think the message was?
And to claim
We want
this-
86 more Trumps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
lots of them.
I looked it up. It actually has an angel number meaning. It indicates that your guardian angels are aware of your entreaties regarding financial necessities and requirements.
That's clearly
So
what
he's
he meant.
wishing
That's exactly
financial
it.
prosperity on the 47th president.
Well, he knows that Donald Trump was richer before he became the president, and he knows that it's cost him money to be the president. So he's hoping that Donald Trump gets back the money after he's finished as a public
No,
servant.
but seriously, like,
course.
what did he think was going to happen after posting this? Like, everyone was just going to scroll past it?
Yeah.
Why is he playing dumb now? What's the use?
I genuinely think that a lot of these people are so used to getting away with violence and threats, he didn't think anybody would do anything about it.
Krasenstein's replies, people are saying, hey, you condone murder. And he's like, hell no. What? I have no idea what you're talking about. So he's playing dumb as well. Is he getting investigated?
I don't know. You know, I think they should, but I was telling the good rep over here how much I love Democrats because they are ruthless and merciless. And if this were inverted, the Democrats would be you'd have a handful of federal cops just mercilessly beating the Republican FBI director.
Yeah, look at what they did to the J6ers. The people
Right.
that didn't even get near the building. They arrested grandmas, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, you're right. I mean, I sadly agree with you.
You love Democrats too.
We often let our party down. We let the base down because we always bring like not even a knife to a gunfight. We generally
Spork.
Pom-poms.
pom-poms to a gunfight.
Is it pom-pom or pom-pon?
Pom-poms. P-O-M-P-O-M.
P-O-M. Pom-poms.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Don Jr. had posted that?
I mean,
Oh, dude. If Don Jr. posted 86, 40,
46.
46, they'd kick in his door. It would be like that scene from V for Vendetta when they cracked the comedian in the face with a truncheon.
Yeah.
But Biden's already dead, so you don't need to 86.
I mean,
It's a robot. He's currently a robot.
he's as close to a zombie as you can get in the real world, I think.
Like, we almost started feeling bad for him toward the end there, you know?
Don't include
Well,
me in
people don't know this,
I
but
did.
Kamala Harris is actually a necromancer. And the reason she was on the ticket is because she was the only one who could actually puppet string the Biden into looking like he was running.
Just an animated meat sack.
that. Actually seems
I think the only problem with that is you're calling Biden animated.
Right, never mind. Scratch that.
Anyway, this is the top trending story on X right now.
I mean, it's not
Indicative of the state of our politics.
It's not a surprise that Comey, would post stuff like this. He's been as much of an outspoken Donald Trump critic as as anyone else or any other Democrat. The idea that he was an unbiased, director of the FBI, that's ridiculous.
Why
I
was
think
he appointed? Can you, debrief me on where Comey's TDS comes from?
Well, I don't know.
Democrat.
Well, I mean, I don't know about his Trump derangement syndrome, but Trump is how do you describe Trump? He's I can't think of a good word for this, but he hired a bunch of really stupid people because he trusted
Yeah.
really stupid people.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the reason why he hired the people that he did is because he believed that once he got elected and got into office, they would treat him like the other presidents. He would be
Oh, yeah.
a member of he would be in the club. And there's nothing that Trump wants more than to be liked by people and to be in the club. Call that if you look at that as something bad, then fine. If you look at that as something good, then fine. But if what Trump wants is to get the respect of the people that were in the club. If it wasn't for Barack Obama making fun of him, he likely would have never run. But it was a big FU to the establishment and to everybody that was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that laughed at him. He got in and then he was like, okay, I will be magnanimous and I will treat you all well and I'll be nice and I will, if you'll let me in the club. And the difference between Trump and every other president is once he was in, they didn't consider him in. They didn't think of him as an insider. He was always an outsider.
I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it as a rhetorical device. Have you ever seen Fahrenheit 11/9 by Michael Moore?
No.
Of course you didn't. In that documentary, you have seen it. You did see
It's
it.
been a while.
Oh, heavens, I was wrong. You saw it. Well, I saw it too. I went with Luke Rudkowski. We took a trip to the theater. And in it, Michael Moore argues that Trump was accidentally the president. And he only announced he was running for president because NBC gave Gwen Stefani a better contract. And he got offended because he's a bigger personality. So he thought if I announce that I'm running and then actually, do this, once I leave, I'll have better name recognition and they'll give me a better deal. But then he accidentally won and was befuddled.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense because he registered MAGA 4 years before he ran. But sure.
He'd been
talking about it forever. He'd been talking about it with Roger Stone for quite some time. They've been planning. He was flirting with it for a long time. But as somebody who'd never ran for anything, a lot of people who are private sector individuals don't want to jump right in like that. But he was planning.
I'm not that I'm in the political realm, but I know a few people that have, that are elected officials, and I would not want anything to do with that at all. It seems like an exercise in masochism. But he was flirting in 2000, I think, is when he was going to start the
Reform Party?
Yeah, the Reform Party, and then David Duke got into there. He's like, all right, I'm out of here, man. But yeah, he had been flirting with the idea. He talked to Oprah Winfrey about it. And I think that's part of the reason why nobody thought he was serious, even when he did announce. And that's probably why Joe Scarborough gave him so much time. They had been friendly before he ran. And then they thought, oh, Donald Trump was on The Apprentice. He's on NBC, so we can bring him on. It'll be crossover stuff. The NBC fans like him, so it'll be fun, et cetera, et cetera. But then when he did actually become the nominee, they had to side with Hillary Clinton because that's what NBC was going to do. And so, they had to turn on him, but they gave him tons of free airtime. They were part of the reason why Donald Trump was elected in the first place.
You're right, though, about his need to feel included in the club. Like, that is his top character flaw.
Yep.
Just this pathological need to be liked.
There's
Yes, but his arrogance on top of that, when they've slighted him, becomes, near divine retribution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We were promised
It's like,
retribution.
can I come in your club? And they're like, no, you stink. I'm going to destroy you.
To me, he's the Rodney Dangerfield from Caddyshack.
It's great. It's a great analogy.
That is Trump. Like, he's the guy who the elitists, they didn't want him to be part of the club, but he certainly qualified, and he said, "I'll show you. I'll find a way to get in, and you'll have to deal with me." He's Dangerfield.
I remember when he was running, and he was about to take the primaries. He had a meeting in D.C., and everybody was all excited. We were watching there was a car pulling into a building, and everybody was like, ooh, he's going to have a meeting with these big shots. And I think Trump went in talking to the Republican leadership and was under the impression, if I win, I'm going to work with you guys. Who do you think I should bring on? And they were like, yeah, bring in John Bolton and bring in Comey. And he's like, all right. And then as soon as he did, they were like, all right, get him out. Shut him down. Russian spy, and they betrayed him. The Republicans had Congress for the first 2 years of Trump's first term, and what happened? They went along with the Russian narrative. Let it happen. That's insane. And here we are. I suppose the good thing is you wouldn't have everything Trump is doing right now if he did win in 2020. You would have been a continuation of these bad people. Yeah. So, ain't all bad.
No, the time that Trump spent, in the wilderness was really, really good for, I think it'll end up being good for the country. But it was definitely good for Donald Trump because he went and, if I understand correctly, I was watching a lot of stuff that Sean Spicer and Mark Halperin have been talking about it. And they were saying, he spent a lot of time finding people in Washington and talking with them and listening to them. And saying, what did I do wrong? How did I mess up, et cetera? And he really spent a lot of time thinking about that and figuring out how to make sure that it doesn't happen, which is why we got the flurry of activity that we had when he first got elected, when he first got inaugurated. And that's why, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but that's why we see the Supreme Court today talking about birthright citizenship. If I understand correctly, they're not actually going to be taking on the issue of birthright citizenship, but they are taking on the issue of blanket pardons.
Well, let's jump into this. We've got this from NPR. Supreme Court justices appear divided in birthright citizenship arguments. So for those that aren't familiar today, they heard the oral arguments as to whether or not people get citizenship just because they were born here. They also heard arguments on universal injunctions. And as always, the liberals are saying the clearly liberal things, and the conservatives saying the clearly conservative things. They're going to say the U.S. Supreme Court seemed at least partially divided on Thursday as the justices heard more than 2 hours of arguments debating how the lower courts should handle Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship. Trump has long maintained there's no such thing as birthright citizenship, but the Supreme Court ruled otherwise 127 years ago. They were wrong, by the way. That's my opinion. The court said then, and since then, that the text of the 14th Amendment, enacted after the Civil War, says that all babies born in the U.S. are automatically U.S. citizens. Undaunted, Trump on his first day issued an executive order, we know. When the Court of Appeals refused to intervene while the litigation proceeded, the Trump admin asked the Supreme Court to block universal injunctions altogether. The admin asserted that single district judges should not have such broad authority. So on Thursday, the court heard emergency arguments in the case. So yeah, it doesn't seem like they're going to answer just right now on birthright citizenship, but on the issue of They could. Universal injunctions. One of the most fascinating statements in this, I think it was Ketanji Brown Jackson. It might have been. It was one of the liberals.
It's stupid.
And it was. They said, what's wrong? So the argument was, what's wrong with a district court judge telling the government what you're doing is illegal, so you can't do it to anyone? And the Solicitor General for the U.S. said, we enacted Trump signed an executive order about, the military. I think it was the military. And we got a court to issue a universal injunction saying you cannot enact this. So we appealed. The appeals court put a stay on the injunction saying, for the time being, until this is properly adjudicated, you can continue. Shortly after that, they filed in another district court and got another universal injunction. So how does it make sense that you're going to get an appeals court saying keep going, but then another district court can just put another injunction? And the Supreme Court justice said, yeah, but then wouldn't like everyone who's affected have to get a lawyer and sue when these things happen? And I'm just like, are you a yes? Are you kidding me? The argument from the liberal court was that people uninvolved in a court case could and should be granted relief or impacted by a court's decision. That is an absurdity. That means that argument is Phil could file a lawsuit over the interpretation of like music royalties or something, and then totally unrelated to the case, the judge could say, and people can't wear beanies anymore. And then I'm like, wait, what do I have to do with this? I am not a party to this lawsuit. Why are you enjoining my actions after the fact? That's the argument they were making. It is a stupid argument. And sometimes I wonder how these people are justices.
Well, there are special interest groups. Like, for instance, there is the short barrel rifle or pistol dispute that's going to be going up to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure if they're going to actually hear it, but I think they're trying to get it in front of the Supreme Court. But either way, like, not every person in the country needs relief by the injunction, right? It's the people that own these guns. So the special interest groups like the Gun Owners of America, or FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition, or whatever, these groups can go to the court and say, we need an injunction for our members. That's not a blanket.
That's right.
Right.
That's not a blanket for the whole country, but it is for the specific people that will be affected. And the way that it goes now is it's just an injunction for the whole country, and that shouldn't be. And this is something that Kagan has spoke on recently, or not recently, but in the past. These injunctions that are blanket injunctions that prevent the administration from carrying out its job need to end. Mm-hmm. You can't just have the judiciary impeding the executive office from doing its job.
Lower courts.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the real problem, is that you've got how many hundreds or thousands of these individuals are there? I don't know, but you can't, it's chaos when you let one person in a lower court be the veto, literally give them the veto power of a president on policy that affects the entire nation. That's insane. That was never an intention of the founding fathers.
Nowhere in the Constitution does it grant the judiciary the power to issue universal decrees as to how the country is run. I mean, and it's a particularly egregious with Donald Trump's ban on transgender servicemen and women in the military. This is a DSM-5 mental disorder. That is the academic phrase. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. YouTube, calm down. Rumble's chill. But there are over 40 different categories that will get you disqualified or disqualify from enlistment. And Trump just added another one to it, only if you're exhibiting symptoms. And a lower court district judge said, no, you must bring in anyone who enlists because, quote, all means all. This meant, at least temporarily, schizophrenic, bipolar individuals are now entitled to enlist in the military, and Trump can't say no. He's the commander-in-chief. It's an absurdity that you basically have in these universal injunctions rule by decree of the judiciary. They can literally just, we hereby say the government can no longer arrest people for smoking pot, and just decree that marijuana is not illegal anymore. That's an insanity. So I don't know if they're, according to NPR, it looks like even the conservatives weren't convinced by the Solicitor General's arguments, but I guess we'll see. The other context, of course, is birthright citizenship. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you believe that people should be granted automatic citizenship just for being born here?
No, I don't think the Constitution says that. I think it's pretty clear that that the president has and Congress have the authority over this topic to define it and to determine, naturalization. I don't think, and nowhere in there does it say that anybody born here has U.S. citizenship.
Well, the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
That's the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law, and it definitely wasn't intended to mean anyone who flies over the border at the last minute while crowning is about to give birth to a U.S. citizen. That is not the way it was intended at all.
Indeed, the intention of the 14th Amendment was to say, hey guys, Stop the Civil War stuff. It's over. We win. Now, how do we remedy this slavery thing? I got it. If you were born here, you know, you're a citizen. We good? Okay, now moving forward, and then 40 years later, somebody was like, yeah, but it says if you're born here, you're a citizen. And then they were like, no, that meant then. That meant like after the war. And they're like, nah, we think it means forever.
Well,
and then a judge said yes.
We have a unique problem now that they didn't have back then, and that is that we have thousands and thousands of people streaming over the border, as you said, pregnant, to have babies here, to anchor themselves and their families in the United States. And a lot of these people are not, they're not amalgamating with the culture.
Right.
They have their own cultures, and they maintain, in some sense, they maintain their patriotism and allegiance to the countries that they come from. This is a unique problem that we have. This isn't a problem that goes back to the Civil War. So I think it needs a new solution.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, we constantly hear from liberals arguments about how the Founding Fathers didn't understand the technological advancements that would alter the meaning of the Constitution. And I don't completely disagree with that. I just don't think it voids any of the initial Bill of Rights of the Constitution. That being said, I do think it's fair to say, here's a question for you guys. You're a member of Congress. Are you a two-way guy, you'd say?
Yes.
Do you think people should be allowed to have nuclear weapons? Tough one, right?
You know, I would say up everything up into nuclear weapons.
What about biological weapons?
No.
See, I agree, but my view is procedurally we should amend the Constitution. We have to say that.
Because it's clear, like whatever, to me, the way the Second Amendment is written, it's that if the military is going to have this, then the citizens should have it too.
Indeed. And back then, in the late 1700s, when they were fighting a war, and then I think it was, 1789 when they drafted this, people had cannons, artillery. They had warships, private warships. And even to this day, private companies make nuclear weapons for the government. They just regulate and control how it's done. So I do think we want to protect the basic right of the people to keep and bear arms, but basically everybody. I know not literally everybody, but most people would be like, we don't think random people should have biological weapons, but it's a weapon. It's used by governments. Yeah, but we're talking about the apocalypse now. The Founding Fathers couldn't have perceived of weaponized smallpox. Well, actually. So, right.
Maybe, now that you mentioned that, their thoughts on bioweapons may be different than what we're talking about
But
here.
my point is, in bringing that up, is they didn't perceive of it that way, of like weaponizing viruses to target genetics and things like that.
Sure.
So anyway, my point is this. Airplanes, it was a lot easier back in the day. If somebody came into your town and wasn't from there, they'd just be like, "Wait, you're not a citizen, get out of here." Now what happens is someone flies here. Guy at the hospital doesn't know who this person is.
That's right. And you have to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this Chinese woman comes in and she's like, I'm pregnant. And they're like, we don't know if they're a citizen or not. And then they give birth. And then this is okay. Whatever it is your arguments are, whatever you want to think, I'm going to tell you exactly why we have to get rid of birthright citizenship. Okay, it shouldn't exist. Iran is a great adversary of ours. We don't like them. They're crazy. They're going to build a nuclear weapon. We can't have any of that. What happens if an Iranian couple travels to the U.S. by whatever means they can, because they do, and gives birth to a child in America, and then 3 months later flies back to Iran through Turkey or something, right? Lives 20 years, let's say 20 years in Iran, and that child grows up as a staunch Islamist and supporter of Iran and their desires and their goals, but as an American passport.
This is very similar to the reality of Hassan Piker.
And then the Iranian 20-year-old who barely speaks English moves to the United States, an American citizen, born in America, allegiant to Iran, and then goes to university, learns a language, and then runs for president. 15 years later, young 35-year-old, charismatic, says, trust me, I should be president. Everyone's like, you grew up in Iran, an adversary of this nation. Doesn't matter. American citizen. I mean, that's an absurdity. The Founding Fathers would say, no. What do you mean? Imagine going to like Thomas Jefferson and saying, you know that song you guys have about the shores of Tripoli? What if those people came here and had kids and then ran for president? He'd be like, what? No. What are you talking about? And that's where we are today.
Yeah, and then you add on top of that we're now a nation, we're a welfare state. Right?
Oh yeah.
So for every person back in the founding fathers, every person born was not a walking liability, financial liability.
Yep.
Every child born in America that is U.S. citizen is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs just in education costs alone to the U.S. taxpayers. If God forbid they get sick and they go to the hospital, we're paying for their Medicaid, right? And so, and the costs go on. And so that's why, and you can't have a nation that has such a generous welfare system and have open borders and allow this to happen.
I will just clarify, because the Marines hymn is from 1867. So Thomas Jefferson, of course, would not have known about it. But he did know about the shores of Tripoli, so he certainly would have been like, yeah, no. But I do think it is kind of funny, in fact, that a lot of the illegal immigrants are from the halls of Montezuma,
Yeah. I mean,
I guess technically many from the shores of Tripoli as well.
possibly. But never mind. I had a point, but I lost it.
I was too busy making a point about the Founding Fathers being at war with Barbary pirates and not wanting them to come here.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing the whole policing the seas for a long time, haven't we?
Trump still wants to do it. That's like his whole thing.
The U.S. still does make the seas safe for international trade, for at least for most of the world, And personally, I think that's a totally legitimate use for the Navy, and it's a big part of why the U.S. is still the indispensable nation.
Indeed. Let's jump to this story from Politico. Wisconsin judge argues she is entitled to judicial immunity. You may have heard of Judge Hannah Dugan. She is accused of aiding and abetting a criminal alien by allowing him to escape federal law enforcement that were seeking to deport him. She's pleaded not guilty. Now she is arguing she is immune from prosecution. Let me read. Wisconsin judge charged with helping a man who was in the country illegally helping a man in the country illegally evade U.S. immigration agents who was trying to get him from the courthouse, filed a motion to dismiss the case Wednesday, arguing there's no legal basis for it. Attorneys for Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan argue in the notion that her conduct on the day of question amounted to directing people's movement in and around her courtroom, and that she enjoys legal immunity for official acts she performs as a judge. They cite last year's U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Trump's 2020 election interference case. We get it. Quote, the problem with the prosecution are legion. But most immediately, the government cannot prosecute Judge Dugan because she is entitled to judicial immunity for her official acts. Immunity is not a defense to the prosecution to be determined later by a jury or court. It is an absolute bar to the prosecution at the outset.
Is that an official duty, helping accused criminals escape?
And they're going to go objection, speculative. I actually don't know if they'd say that, but I just wanted to bang the gavel. But what they're actually going to say is she wasn't seeking to assist an illegal immigrant. She was simply directing the flow of traffic in her courtroom that she does every. That's what they're saying. That's what they said. That's literally what they said.
That's hilarious.
As judge, she has to tell people where to go and when to go, and she was saying, "You go that way and leave."
That's
because
hilarious.
I am so busy today. Now, the funny thing about law is I typically find a lot of people, I don't know if you guys bump into this, people think the law is like a gigantic wall. And it's just like, if there's a contract law is my favorite. People will say things like, oh, but you can't do this. You signed a contract. I'll be like, you've never been involved with contract litigation, have you? Because people break those literally every other day. They're literally worth less than the paper they're printed on. It's kind of just like guidelines. But contracts can be voided by a judge. I can sign a label deal with Phil that's totally sound and legit, and then a judge finds it to be unfair and just voids it. It's like the contract doesn't mean anything. So people don't understand that the law is as people are willing to enforce it. So then when this judge says, hey, look, I'm allowed to direct traffic in my courtroom, so I'm immune, any sane judge is going to go, nice try, lady. Because we're human beings. We're not morons. We understand what you're trying to do.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but if you can make an argument and you have someone that's politically aligned with you and they're politically motivated, almost any argument will do.
She's going before, I guess, a Democrat judge appointed by Bill Clinton. So
That's convenient.
Well,
She'll get at it.
I mean, it's really a shame. It's really shameful, and both. I mean, it's kind of like Comey too. It's like these people have ruined their lives and their careers. They've by making these decisions. This is and it's wild. Like, how did you? At some point, how did you get to the place where you have such an upside down perspective on reality, like she did? So.
it's a cult, man.
It is a cult.
Like let me ask you, like you're in Congress, and the complaint we have with the Republicans, they don't seem to do much. But to be fair, in all seriousness, I do prefer a political party that does little compared to what the Democrats do.
Yeah.
And the issue I see right now with the Democratic Party is they seem to do nothing but oppose. They're not offering things up. Like if you that RFK Jr. hearing where he yelled at that woman, he's like, "You've been trying to get artificial dyes out for 20 years. I did it in 100 days. You should be praising me." Nope, you're bad. So we're going to oppose you. Trump says, "I'm going to sign an executive order to negotiate drug prices down," and they got mad at him. Why? What is this?
Yeah,
You work with these people.
their brain is broken, right? Is
that going to get you in trouble?
That didn't no, the brain is broken. These are the same people that would not applaud the young boy who had brain cancer, who was being deputized as a U.S. Marshal. How could you sit there and protest that? It just defies any kind of rationale whatsoever.
I don't see how Democrats muster up anything for 2028 because there's no message, there's no mission.
And if they lean into class warfare and true left-wing populism, they would clean up, but they're not willing to divorce themselves from identity politics yet.
I don't.
Is the humiliation not thorough enough?
I don't know that they have politics. It's just whatever Trump is, their
policy.
opposite.
Yeah, they don't have a consistent policy or philosophy, a political philosophy that they're governed by.
Like I agree with what you're saying, but my point is their intention is not to be for identity politics. It's because we're against it. So if
I disagree. I mean, I think that they are truly hateful people.
yes,
I
but
do hate white men. That is true.
But that's because Trump
not
is
performative.
a white man.
It's not just because Trump is a white man.
I think for some of these people, you're probably correct. Or I should say, for some of these people, they genuinely hate white people and they're leading the cause. But I would argue that for most liberal or Democrat voters, they would abandon the anti-white stuff the moment Trump was out of the picture.
That wasn't true when Biden was in office.
The default libs.
Wait, are you?
I'm saying like there's
referring
an activist base that is anti-white.
Yeah.
And then there's default libs that just vote for whatever the machine tells them to vote for. And the default libs are clueless to these politics. They don't care. But they hate Trump, so they vote for whatever the libs want.
Not sure if I agree about the default libs. They're more extreme than you might be
I don't know. I think they're culty. I think they're ignorant. They don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm actually on Mary's side on this. I do think that they have they have the desire to look at people as the other. So they look at Republicans overall as the other, and you can see it in a lot of people that post on TikTok. A lot of them, and they tend to be awfuls, affluent, white, urban, liberal women, and they say some of the most terrible racist things. But because it's directed at white people, it's perfectly acceptable. And Tim's right. There is a culty aspect to them because you can check the list of all the appropriate views. And if they have all the appropriate views, then they can say terrible things. But I forget who made the quote, but there is something that is extremely alluring to people to be able to be terrible to other people and feel like you have the moral high ground. You're being virtuous by being terrible to people. And right now, conservatives, MAGA people, and are in that group, and it's focused on white conservative men. And so anytime they get the opportunity to be condescending, hateful, and just absolutely awful, They do, and it's like a psychological treat. I forget who said that. That was the quote they used. It was the most delectable psychological treat is what they said. But people do. If you can feel morally superior and be absolutely terrible to someone else and feel like you're doing it and you're right in doing it because they are bad, it's something that some people just can't pass up.
In Congress, do you reach out to Democrats and try to get them on board with your project, your bills?
Yeah, just today, Jared Golden and I had a conversation in the hallway about, well, I'm working on a data privacy bill for the data that your car collects. I don't know if you're aware of this, but like your if you buy a new vehicle today, they're tracking so much information about you, your driving habits, where you went, the fact, I mean, they could tell that you went to Taco Bell last night and that you gained 10 pounds, right? And what you were listening to along the way. And then they're broadcasting that through a cell signal back to the mothership, right? To whatever car company you bought it from. And then they sell it on the market, right?
Do you mean buying it new, and how new?
So I think I've heard that this pattern has been happening since 2021. Like vehicles since 2021, not every make, but more and more makes of cars are doing this. They're monetizing your data, and so that people need to know that.
Did you know that Facebook knows when you have to poop? Not a joke.
What, when you start scrolling?
No. So there are things that we don't realize are associated with behaviors, but when Facebook brings in 1 billion people and then takes the data from all of them,
wow,
it can see like, so this is actually a story that's pretty old. Facebook's been able to do this for a long time. It can predict when a person will get up and go to the bathroom because it's got 1 billion people and it's watching everything they do. And it can discern that when your GPS shows you get up from your workspace and then walk and then sit down for 10 minutes and then walk again, they're like, that was a potty break. So now it's tracked all of the behaviors everyone's done before that.
Wow.
It even knows where you'll eat. Facebook can predict which local restaurant you'll go to. You might be sitting there with you're at work and then someone's like, we got Arby's, Burger King, Blaze Pizza. What do you want to hit up? And then you're going, oh man, let's go Blaze Pizza. That sounds good. Facebook already knew. It already knew because there's certain behaviors that you'll do that you don't realize are associated with a certain kind of food. But the AI can predict it with high probability. It's nuts.
Zuckerberg's literally waiting inside for you at the table. He knows which table you're going to go to as well.
I brought my sweet baby Rays.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
It's one thing if you know as the consumer, if you are prepared and you know and you've consented to that and you say, I know you're gonna, like Google. Everybody knows you have Gmail. Everybody knows that you're giving up all of your information to Google and they're going to sell it, right? Monetize it. And that's part of like the think. But I don't think people know that their car is tracking them.
Yeah.
And I think
do.
People
Tesla,
need to know.
So.
But your weight.
Yeah.
It like, did you ever accidentally like put your hand down on the passenger seat or something or in the back seat and that puts the seatbelt warning up?
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of books, it was Life magazines, and I put in the passenger seat and then it was like, put on a seatbelt. Because it's weighing you.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would be hilarious, though. Elon should do this. If you gain a lot of weight, it should put an alert up being like, in the past month, you've gained 7 pounds. Put down the fork.
Show the face of Bobby Kennedy Jr. don't eat that.
The one in the shadows. The one where he's like coming out of the shadows looking at you.
It's the straight top down. It's all the shadows in his face.
The Kubrick stare.
So he's frightened.
You're eating too much.
Down the Big Mac. I know it's delicious.
I know we're laughing about it, but I think that's genuinely where we're going as a civilization with AI and automation. You're going to pick up your phone. You're going to be like, I got to go to work. You're going to go on Uber. It's going to be called Uber Auto. The car will be self-driven. You'll sit down in it, and you'll just have your eyes half, just glazed over and half closed. And then all of a sudden, the car will turn left and go into a Starbucks. It'll pull up, automatically transmit the data. Then a robot arm will reach into the car and it'll give you a mocha frappuccino and you'll be like, I did want one of these.
I
didn't even ask for it, but
I wouldn't mind the car telling me if I put on, a couple pounds, so I didn't have to wait until the mirror told me, because that is gradual and it slowly happens. So it's there. Then you just one day you're like, oh no, I've gained 7 or 8 pounds, and I got to go spend a whole bunch of time at the gym. If it was just like 2 or 3 pounds, it's like you gained a couple pounds. I can be like, all right, well, I'm going to go to the gym and take care of this before it gets bad.
So back to your question about do we work with Democrats? I'll tell you, like, one of my favorite moments of the day is going into the member gym, because it's like I'll be lifting weights side by side with Democrats, right? And at that time, it's not, it's just getting to know each other on a personal level.
Went to the gym.
Yeah, because
probably more Republicans, but there are
Wild.
Yeah, but look, I mean, obviously all the Republicans are ripped and they're like, they're doing heavy curls, and the Democrats are probably lifting like 5-pound weights and.
No, I mean,
But lifting weights made you a fascist.
I'll tell you, Luke Herrera from California, great guy. He's a great guy, and he's pretty stout. He's a especially at his age, he is a strong individual.
Stout also implies short, doesn't it?
I don't know. To me, when I see stout, I think of like
Robust.
broad
No,
and
that could mean fat.
like
Broad. Yeah, broad works.
right.
Thick.
Do you think that instinct to collaborate and build bridges is kind of a one-sided feeling?
Do I?
The Democrats don't feel that way.
There's some, and I think that, like, even on a personal level, like AOC and I, for example, we don't align on nearly anything. Now we do on the UAP topic and some privacy issues, but we still find, I mean, you find a way to like be nice as a human being to the people that you're working with, even when you're disagreeing with them adamantly. But when the cameras turn on, because I'm on oversight committee, and when people have their 5 minutes, it's become clickbait, right? Like it's become
performative.
It's performative, and I can go into a whole thing about this.
The camera is like a full moon, and when it turns on, they're sitting there talking to you and be like, "Hey man, that was a really great clip," and the camera turns on. They
Well, that's the thing. They want the to be able to clip it for the internet,
Right.
and then they can act normal outside of the clip. But
I
if
call
they
that
get
evil.
Well, there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
behave that way.
I think that one of the most messed up parts about DC is the committee process, because I came from a state legislature where when you have a bill or you have a topic come through, you literally have members that are sitting there and they're asking questions, thoughtful questions, trying to understand the text of the bill, understand the perspective of the different people that might be affected, and they come up and testify. And so you truly are fact-finding. In Congress, that is not happening. In general, it's all about you get 5 minutes of time, and you better make your 5 minutes interesting. And otherwise, you're not truly, there's no opportunity to actually get
This
anywhere.
is the kind of stuff that makes me want to run for Congress. I was talking to Rep. Massey today, and he was like, "You guys are getting another 3-day weekend. Is that what's going on? They canceled the vote,
Well, I'm still working tomorrow.
but you don't have to."
Yeah, they canceled the vote because
Yes.
they can't decide what to do.
He was like, they gave us a 4-day week. He was like, it was like a 4-day week. Now it's a 3-day week. And I was like, man, you're making it sound like a great job.
Is that another chance to get the Hearing Protection Act in there? Can you
do what?
Another chance to get the Hearing Protection Act in there? Can you slide that
There
in
you go.
there?
That's what we're trying. That's right now. I'm trying to do everything I can
Hearing
to get
Protection
that in
Act, very important.
It's very
Our
important.
Hearing
It's-
is very
look,
important.
Silencers are personal protective
there.
equipment.
Suppressors.
Cans are protective equipment. They're important, and
It's about safety, really.
it is about it unironically is about safety.
And saving money on Medicare, spending money on hearing aids.
Yep, absolutely. That and the Short Act are very important in my opinion.
A real quick question before we move to the next subject, though. I always wondered with these like big omnibus bills. Remember that one that was like 5,000 pages?
Yeah,
Well, why can't you just slide in like one piece of paper that
exactly
says
what we're trying to do.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Just slide in that one paper that says like, you can buy a silencer.
Just abolish the
literally,
ATF.
I'll tell you, like
Abolish the age.
Abolish the NFA.
One
Just one line.
sentence.
That's all it takes. One line.
the real unfortunate thing is often that does happen, but it's from industry. It's the things you don't want. It's the swampy stuff that you say, how did that get in there?
That's the thing. Like we talk about why things are the way they are in DC around this table frequently, and it's like these omnibus bills make everybody in Congress happy because you can throw a bunch of gunk in there. Right. And you don't have to be responsible for the bad stuff. So when your constituents say, hey, how did this pass? How come you didn't vote against it? How come you voted for it? Well, it was in the omnibus and I had to because first of all, we didn't want to shut the government down. And second of all, there was all these things that we do want that were in there and you have to make trades. And that's the way that it goes.
And it's intentionally voluminous.
Yep.
So that it's impossible to read. It's daunting to try and read what's in it. And I don't understand why in Congress we haven't had just single issue bills. I mean, that to me makes the most sense. Just one at a time, one issue at a time.
Because then they have to answer for the bills.
They can't cram a bunch of ancillary stuff into
if you have single line bills, then Congress people are then going to have to go back to their constituents and say, I voted for it because of this, or I voted against it because of this.
Yeah.
And in every district, there are people that are going to be for and against it, and it's easier if you don't have to answer for the bills. It's the same reason that that Congress doesn't declare war anymore. They gave the president, they created a law to give the president the authority to go to war, which the Constitution does not give the president the authority to do that, and it doesn't give the Congress the authority to get out of voting to declare war. But they created that, gave it to the president, and every president since George Bush has been riding on that same authorization. And it's because they don't want to have to vote, because it's easier to go to Congress, not actually have to put your name on anything, so that way you don't have to be responsible for anything. Joe Biden was the exact same thing. The reason why they wanted Joe Biden, or one of the reasons why they wanted Joe Biden, is because Joe Biden was a rubber stamp for whatever the Democrats wanted to do, and Joe Biden wasn't going to be responsible, and no one else was going to be responsible either. No one could tell you who was actually making the calls in the Biden administration, because it wasn't Joe Biden, because he was completely incapable of doing it, and the people behind him could just point at each other.
Let's jump to this next story from the Daily Mail. Trump derangement syndrome to be studied under new bill. How to tell if you've got symptoms. Symptoms of so-called TDS. Yes, they say finally to get to the bottom of this, Rep. Warren Davidson from Ohio introduced the Trump Derangement Syndrome Research Act of 2025 to study the phenomenon. TDS has divided families, the country, and led to nationwide violence, including 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. He told the Daily Mail in a statement. His proposal seeks to leverage the National Institute of Health's existing programs to study the purported disorder. Were you familiar with this one?
I was not. This is new to me. And Warren he's a good friend. He's one of the more brilliant members of Congress. My guess is this is sometimes members will file a bill that's like just making a statement. I think that's
You can't force a vote on it, can you?
I mean, not without really making a lot of people angry.
See, that's the one thing that really makes me want to be in Congress, just for one term, so I can make everybody angry. I would cause a scene. The problem is people might enjoy that I'm there and want to keep me there. I wouldn't want to stay,
Yeah.
But, those 5 minutes you get in those hearings, I'd probably be just, paddle balling, just doing weird stuff. And and I'm like, guys, honestly,
5 minutes.
I got 5 minutes, and I'm gonna get a record for the most amount of paddle balls in 5 minutes. Film it. I want to put it on X. That's my goal.
Bring a skateboard and just do ollies right on the floor.
For 5 minutes.
Like right for 5
I got
minutes.
a fingerboard right here. Let's get some tricks in.
That's what
That's
Riley
very
Moore should
Alex
do.
Stein.
Yes.
That would be very Alex Stein to
Alex
do.
Stein should run
He should.
because he needs to be sitting there and
and
yelling at everybody.
He could troll Dan Crenshaw every day.
That's what we need. I don't know if he could win though. Maybe.
Who knows?
I mean, maybe his campaign can be, guys, look, it doesn't work. Just send me. Who cares?
Yeah,
Have you
like,
seen
what's
the-
the difference?
You see the girl that is running against Crenshaw in Texas, Valentina Gomez? Have you seen
Oh, yeah. I think we've had her on the show a couple times.
she is really fascinating to watch and hilarious.
You are too kind. She is hilarious. She is hilarious. But look, I know that the House is where people can be more colorful and have more personality than the Senate. The Senate's got their nose in the air.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that Valentina is ready for the House of Representatives
Why?
because she's a nutbag.
I mean, she's kind of spicy.
She is kind of spicy.
The entertainment value.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'll tell you, when she was running for like state Secretary of State in Missouri a couple of years ago, and like after the first speech that I saw in front of a forum in front of all these Republicans, I was like, that was a very different speech. It was hilarious. She's really funny, but and so each time. Well, she was making some people mad, and a lot of people had that attitude that what is she doing? She's not going to win. There's no way. I'll tell you, every time she would get up to go to give a speech, I elbow the person next to me and say, "This is going to be good." This is gonna be good.
Look, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe she would be like Donald Trump and she would get in. But I do think unless it's a safe, like a very safe Republican district that she's running in, I wouldn't want to risk losing a House member because
That's fair.
you know, the House is the lead is so narrow now, you know. So personally, that's my opinion.
You don't think she'd be reliable?
No, I'm not sure that she would win, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's a race where unless it's very, very safely Republican
No,
district.
she's a based Zoomer queen.
What district is Crunch on?
I don't know the numbers there, but yeah.
He is in District 2, Texas 2nd.
She has an edge because she has a third eye.
It is R plus 12. Let's go.
I think at this point, the American people will take anybody other than status quo.
Yeah.
I think the American people are sick and tired of normative politicians.
I'd take Mary, and she's a woman.
Over Dan Crenshaw? I would hope
that's
so,
easy,
yeah.
I think you're right, and I think that one of the things that we've said, we've been talking about this a lot, is the fact that Donald Trump has shown that presidents can do things. Like for a long time, presidents would get elected and they'd be like, "Oh, you know, I couldn't do it because of this, or I couldn't do it
They're
because
just
of that."
puppets of the intelligence community.
Yeah, and now the American people are like, "No, I don't believe you anymore," because Donald Trump went in and made all these executive orders, and of course it's up to Congress to codify them. But whether it be stuff that makes the right happy, or it makes the left happy, like the prescription drug stuff that he just did, like that's something that can be done, and that presidents have been, or politicians have been promising forever and ever. And Trump has shown that, look, if you are motivated to do things, the president does have fairly expansive powers. And if Congress or if the judiciary fights you on it, you can fight them back, you know, legally in the court and stuff. So
Right now, Donald Trump, his administration, are trying to take any possible interpretation of the law they can to move their agenda forward, while the judiciary is creating unconstitutional universal injunctions to do whatever they can to stop the executive branch, and Congress is sitting on the bleachers eating popcorn.
This is true.
You know, there's supposed to be a third branch to intervene and be like, whoa, hold on. And I suppose what we want to see is the codification and legislating that is towards Trump's agenda, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the answer that we are given from leadership is that, well, that will never pass the Senate. So they make the political calculation ahead of time, and the reason is then when they backtrack it, they say, well, we don't want to put our vulnerable members on a bad vote or on a vote that might cause them conflict, and so therefore we're not going to take that fight unless we can win it.
Democrats had a committee to go after J6ers. Republicans have never had a committee to go after the far left, notably the M29 insurrectionists who firebombed the White House grounds in St. John's Church. And nearly torched a historic church. They torched a guard post at the White House. Nothing.
the Democrats made fun of it the next day.
They did, yeah.
Bunker Boy. They called the president Bunker Boy because he was being attacked by far leftists. The White House was being attacked by far leftists, and they moved the president to the bunker, which the Secret Service is going to do. The president doesn't have the ability to stop them, and then the media makes fun of him for it. It's insane.
I think the Republicans are making the wrong calculation. I think being more ferocious and controversial, you get the people behind you. You know, it's not, and I think there's a lot of them are afraid that the way they're going to be viewed, the way their colleagues are going to view them, they don't want to be, seen as too extreme, too MAGA. But this is a different time. I mean, you have to get the people behind you, and that's what the Democrats do. They rile up their base, they get behind these pet issues, and they get extreme, and it works for them, and they're very, very tenacious.
I think it's my fault.
Pardon me?
I think it's my fault.
Shame on you.
I think that what we need to do on shows like this is just actively primary anyone who stands in the way. And that is our fault, because what they're scared of, the calculation that you're mentioning, is the New York Times is going to write bad things about me, and then I'm going to lose my race. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, let's see what we here at the Timcast IRL can do to your race if you want to side with the New York Times.
Hear that, House Ways and Means Committee?
So I guess we'll just have to start. I talked about doing it before, but I think the issue is the corporate press has no problem being overtly political and causing these problems for people who fall out of line. And for shows like this, we're all disparate. We're all independent. We don't coordinate with anybody. The New York Times is one big top-down thing. Maybe we need to. Maybe we need to start putting some of these members on blast and say, we're going to make sure you never win another race.
They're politicians. Like they're like cows. They're not going to move unless you create some kind of penalty or some kind of force to move them.
Yeah.
Whenever I first ran for the state house in Missouri, I was the people that give you advice, the advisors, the longtime political consultants said, okay, don't really take a position. Like they would tell you to be very vague in your positions so that you don't box yourself in. And then they would tell you when you're elected, don't sponsor anything very difficult, and certainly don't co-sponsor, because everything you do will more likely have a negative consequence. So don't do anything controversial or big. And that's kind of been the mantra and the attitude. Trump, I think, has changed that. And I think the American people have been sick and tired of politicians who just want to keep their job.
Yeah.
And because that's the attitude of somebody that just wants the job. It's not the attitude of somebody that's trying to save the country. And so we need more people that want to save the country and are okay with the fact that it may mean that they go home.
Yeah. I don't know how we get more people into Congress like that, but I do think that the idea of primarying people for, not following through or doing things like, that are, say, again, anti-Second Amendment, I don't see any problem with at least bringing it up on shows like this and making people aware, because for the most part, your average person doesn't know who are the actual people that are responsible for, why didn't this pass, or why didn't this bill get pushed forward? Like, are there responsible people? And there are people that are responsible, even if it's, and it usually comes down to just a few people or even one person that had the connections to be able to say, no, we're going to put this on the shelf, whether it be the speaker or whether it be the chairman of a committee or something like that. And those people need to be put on blast when they do things that their constituents don't like.
Let's jump to this next story from, is it Live Science? I think it's Live Science. The sun just spat out the strongest solar flares of 2025, and more could be headed toward Earth. The sun has released several powerful M and X class solar flares over the past few days, resulting in radio blackouts around the world. They say on Tuesday, a sunspot on the sun's surface named AR4086 exploded, releasing an X 1.2 class solar flare, part of the most powerful category of flare. Then during the early hours of Wednesday, another sunspot named AR4087 spat out an M5.3 flare, followed by an even more powerful X2.7 flare, and yet another M7.7 a few hours later. The radiation of these solar flares triggered radio blackouts on the sun-facing side of the planet at the time of the flares, affecting North and South America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So a lot of people are freaking out over this story. They're saying it's going to be one of the biggest we've seen in a long time. And there's also a lot of concern about the power outages that we've seen in Europe and Puerto Rico. I don't know if, you guys have talked to anybody about this related to UAP phenomenon or anything related to this, but this stuff seems to be pretty hot right now relating to, there's a conspiracy theory called the Adam and Eve story. Are you familiar with this one?
No.
Yeah.
You're familiar with it. Every 6,500 years, there's a polar shift, the planet tilts or something. And then the magnetosphere weakens, and then we get blasted by solar radiation, destroying technology, and then a flood happens. Yeah.
Yeah, there's various theories of cyclic cataclysm. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another theory is that there's a body that enters our solar system. Maybe it's on an elliptical path around the sun. It flies out further to the solar. Something like that. It could be a large asteroid. And when it comes into the neighborhood of the planets in our solar system, it wreaks havoc, the gravitational pull and so forth. But I think it's clear that cyclic cataclysm is a reality.
Do you think you heard about the power outages across Europe, or it was Spain, France, and Portugal?
I didn't hear about that.
All their power got knocked out.
When did this happen?
Was it a week ago?
Last week, yeah.
Last week?
And it was from a solar flare?
No, I don't know. They said it was what was it? Atmospheric oscillation triggering mechanical failure or something. They said a rare atmospherical phenomenon triggered some failsafe, which knocked the power out from southern France across Spain and Portugal. And I was talking to Ben Davidson. He's the space weather guy. Are you familiar with him by chance?
No.
Space weather guy. He said, similarly, we saw Puerto Rico had all their power knocked out the week prior. So what he surmises is that the magnetosphere has weakened because we are in the midst of a polar shift, and that it's not solar flares, it's just normal solar activity is penetrating the planet.
I see, yeah.
What do you think is going to happen?
This whole idea of a pole shift, I find it to be compelling. I do. I do believe we are in a period of time called a Suntelia, and this is a 1,000-year period of time, and this goes back to the ancient Greeks, all the way back to the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Mesopotamians, in which cataclysm will befall within these 1,000 years. And this is based on the zodiac. This is what the zodiac tracks. The ancients knew this. It tracks cataclysm, like civilization-ending cataclysm. And I think it's happened many times before in the Earth's past, and we are scheduled, we're within that period of time. And whether it's a pole shift or whether it's like I said, an object coming into the solar system, I do believe something is going to happen before long, and before long could mean in the next few hundred years or 500 years.
What about the 2033 asteroid?
Apophis?
Is that its name?
Is it really?
Yeah.
I think that's
serious.
Apophis.
They're calling it Apophis.
I think it's called Apophis.
Oh my God.
If that's the one you're referring
came
to.
up with that?
Yeah, that's supposedly, and maybe they've readjusted the calculation. Isn't it supposed to pass closer to the Earth, like between the moon and the Earth?
It says the next approach close to Earth will be 2028, which is not a concern, but there is an estimated 2.3% chance of impact in 2032.
2036, April 13th.
Wow.
So Apophis would pass through a gravitational keyhole estimated to be 800 meters in diameter. This is Wikipedia, which would have set up a future impact exactly 7 years later on Easter Sunday, April 13th, 2036.
It's going to come within 20,000 miles of the Earth's surface.
Yeah.
That's actually extremely
Very, very
close.
close.
Very, very, very close.
Whoa.
So 23% chance it comes in contact? That's disturbing.
3%, I think they said, right? What is it?
Yeah.
2 to 3?
2 to 3%.
I think they said it was going to hit Africa, so we don't have anything to worry about.
So it's 450 meters.
Real quick,
14
just so you guys understand, the moon is 238,900 miles away.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's passing much closer to the Earth than the moon.
90%?
And, it makes you wonder, is this the reason why so many billionaires have been building bunkers?
That's what I've been talking about.
Yeah, and it's true. It's happening. A lot of people are building bunkers. A lot of billionaires and multimillionaires have been building bunkers, and they've been doing it for the last decade. And what do they know that the rest of us don't?
It could just be that when you got buckets of money, you just do things.
I don't think so, not in this
It's
case.
not related to just nuclear threat?
No, I think it's some sort of impending cataclysm that somebody knows about. Let's call them the elites, the globalist elite, understand that there's a cataclysm coming. Maybe that is why their behavior seems to be so reckless, too, because they know that cataclysm is coming.
Let me ask you a question. Have you seen the proposed future map of North America after the pole shift? Have you ever seen that map?
I don't know if I've seen that, no.
I'm not giving any. I don't want to give any legitimacy to it, but it's an interesting idea. The idea is that if the planet shifts, because the cataclysmic theory is the poles shift. We know they do. However, mainstream scientists say once every 800,000 years, so we ain't got nothing to worry about. However, the cataclysm theorists say it's 6,500, and we're actually in the midst of it. We've got this story from Smithsonian real quick. Earth's magnetic pole is shifting towards Siberia, so people are naturally saying this. If the argument from the cataclysmic theorists is that the planet will tilt, North America will become the southern hemisphere, Florida will be, I think, cold, and Canada will be like Mexico, Antarctica will be on the equator. Mm-hmm. This movement causes all of the water to basically slosh very quickly around, creating great floods. And there's a proposed future map of North America based on this, where you basically have the North America, the United States, becomes split in two different major bodies of water. So there's 3 chunks. Water runs through it. California's flooded. Florida's gone. Well, no, Florida's not gone, but flooded. And I was thinking about this, and I got a question for you. If there were to be a cataclysm, what's the most important technology we should be mass producing right now to recover civilization after a cataclysm?
Spaceships or underground cities.
Well, did you hear about Catherine Austin Fitz on Tucker Carlson?
Yes.
Yes.
And she said they spent
Underground
21.
bases.
They're called DUMBs.
Yeah,
deep underground military bases.
Military bases.
But I understand about bases, right? That's where the people go. Technology-wise, what should we be building to reestablish civilization after the cataclysm and we emerge from the bunkers?
I think that we need to race to, I mean, this is going to sound really sci-fi, but I think the fact that we have discovered the Higgs boson particle, actually, I think it was discovered, 12 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I mean, that's the particle, that's the field that gives mass to matter, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we need to really juice the advanced theory in order to create things like gravity warp bubbles and things like that, right?
Right, but if civilization collapses, none of that matters, right? So what technology do you guys think we would have to mass produce right now so that if civilization collapsed, we emerge from our bunkers a year later, what do we need first and foremost?
Well, I imagine
That's a really good question.
Actually, a really easy answer.
Well, I'm thinking something like hydroponics, so that way you can make sure that you can grow food.
What do you need to grow food? Like
You need water.
And how do you get water?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can get it out of the atmosphere. You can get it out of
Okay. How would you, as a human being, pull water from the atmosphere?
personally.
There's actually one thing all civilizations need first and foremost, and it's energy.
Well, yeah. Okay.
So what kind of energy source would we need to mass produce right now if we're preparing for a cataclysm?
I think solar would be good.
Solar and wind.
Yeah.
We would need to convince everybody to start mass producing solar and wind because without transmission lines and without transportation lines, petroleum ain't going to save you.
Yep.
So the first thing we need to do is how do we convince the entire Western populations
I see where you're going with this.
just start producing wind and solar?
Right.
Because we're going to build these underground cities. And then after the cataclysm, power lines are gone. Petroleum, we're not going to know where it is. We're going to have no means, perhaps satellite. But once we locate it, we don't got the trucks. We don't got the roads.
Yep.
The first thing we'll need is electricity. We put up some wind turbines, and we've instantly got a continual source of energy or solar panels.
Yep.
Right. Now, how do we convince people to start shifting the economy towards a direction?
The climate change narrative.
So this is where it gets really funny. The climate change narratives never come true. They keep saying it every 10 years. The bridges don't happen. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, how do you convince a market economy to start building something unprofitable?
Mm-hmm.
You don't, unless the end is
Unless you scare them. Yeah.
But if you told people that there actually was a pole shift coming and we were going to face a cataclysm,
They'd freak out. Yeah.
It'd stop working.
Exactly.
Truck drivers would stop driving trucks.
No, that's a very good theory.
So, theory, but it was an idea. I was thinking, like, when I was reading all this stuff, I'm just thinking, not that I think it's going to happen. I don't know. But I was just thinking about these pole shift. I was watching that Tucker Carlson episode with Catherine Austin Fitz saying they spent $21 trillion on deep underground cities. I think that's an exaggeration. They're deep underground military bases. These exist.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk has confirmed the existence of them, the limestone caverns. They exist. And then I was thinking, like, if I was going to build a bunker, what's the first thing I would need when I got out? I'm like, well, nothing else matters unless you have electricity. You need energy sources. So we'd probably want to have a lot of cables, a lot of, the electronic components to run machines. Electric cars would be great too, because we're not going to have a petroleum refinery. We are going to have alternative sources of energy. We can charge a car off of the grid of a small series of wind turbines or solar. And they've done it. They've convinced everybody through legislation and cultural action to start building exactly what we would need in the event of a cataclysm.
So do you think that the people who, let's say that in this thought experiment, the people who know it's coming, do you think that they really care about the populations of Earth or just protecting themselves, their families?
They care about the population of Earth, but come on, like Noah's Ark, he couldn't save everybody.
So you think that they would actually be bringing people down into these deep underground military bases at some point? See,
Absolutely.
I don't. I think they care about the preservation of certain people on planet Earth, but the vast majority of people, I don't think they really.
Well, but that was not the question. The question was, would they bring people down? Of course they will.
Yeah.
There's going to be a select group of people that they deem necessary to the expansion and survival of humanity.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to be Joe the plumber. Literally that guy, Joe the plumber. Remember him from 10 years ago? It's not going to be him. Mary was 10, so she doesn't remember.
There was a phrase that I heard in this context. It's just most people are useless eaters, is what they were called. They were,
Oh, that was Yuval Harari?
Yeah, Yuval Harari. Like, they just people that don't do anything particularly important, right? But there are going to be people that are, I mean, and I would be among the useless eaters. I'm a guy that...
Well, I just want to say real quick, I mean, I think everyone agrees. Quick-witted and charismatic individuals who can talk very well are very important for civilization. So, maybe I'll get a phone call. Maybe.
But, the
mountain weather is real close.
The fact of the matter is, in any scenario where there's going to be a large population, a large portion of the population dying off, they're going to select for people that will be beneficial to help continue the population. The bad idea or the negative of that is when nepotism and wealth are the only factors. If you can buy your way in, you buy your way in for your family, and your kid's a loser, or both your kids are a loser and they're addicted to drugs.
I don't think so.
I hope not, but that would be the worst case scenario, is when too many people that have access that don't actually provide a benefit. There has to be a certain number of people in order to continue the continue.
You know what I think they would do,
race.
though? We did talk about this before. You know what I think they would do? They would publicly offer up space for everybody. And the way it would work is they'd say, public announcement, guys, you can see the weird thing happening in the sky. Don't freak out. We have prepared emergency bunkers. You will be safe. Come on down.
They'll never tell you. The population...
No. You're coming down. Trust me. You come, you get in line, and there's a big line, and they're going to be like, Mr. Alberino, right this way. And you're going to walk in, and they're going to say, thank you for coming. We've got a great facility for you. We've built it. You and your family are welcome. Just go through the door to my right, and pay no attention to the door to the left. And you'll go, all right. And when you walk to the door to the right, it opens up, and you go, wah! You just fall into... That way you avoid any kind of civil unrest. And then people outside are like, what happened to Tim? It's like, they let him in. Great. And then someone else comes down and they say, and who are you? It's like, I'm a rocket scientist. I can synthesize chemicals and rocket fuel. And they go to the door on the left. And he opens it up and it's a royal palace.
What about those rocket scientists' families?
Yeah, they can go with them. Yep. Okay. Yeah, how do you avoid civil unrest if they start trying to bring people down into these bunkers when not everybody's going to go? You can't just say only some are allowed, because people will go out with guns and fight their way in. You tell them everything's going to be okay. Your door is there. And when they walk through that door, it's right into a meat grinder.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, the ancients were tracking this cataclysm every 6,480 years according to the zodiac. That's the purpose of the zodiac, by the way, is to track cyclic cataclysm. It's one of the primary purposes. And we are due. This is as I said, this is the transition of one aeon to the next, one age to the next.
Age of Aquarius.
Into the age of Aquarius, that's right, from Pisces. We're presently in Pisces. And when we make this transition, it will be cataclysmic. And the ancients knew this. And it's very possible that there's a group of people alive today who also know this.
That song always creeped me out.
The Age of Aquarius.
Yeah. I knew it meant something bad. Let's jump to this next story, which is not related at all, but still fun. Eric Davis tells Congressman Burlison he is aware of 4 alien species. It's kind of hard to hear, but let's play.
Are they multiple species? Are they like, what was their size? And how many are usually on a craft?
They're typically the multiple species people are familiar with, the Greys, the Nordics. People are talking about reptilians and insectoids. It's not that they're reptilian or insectoid, it's that they resemble to the recipient of reptile or insect.
All right, instead of just playing that video, you can tell us, what was he saying? He's saying there's 4 different alien species that he knows of?
Yeah, that was not what I expected him to say. But yeah, he said.
So who is this guy?
This is Eric Davis. Has been involved in the intelligence community since the 80s, right? So he's
for a long time.
For a long time, and he first worked for Bigelow Aerospace, and then he went on to get work for the Pentagon, and then CIA, and basically researching what they describe as crashed material. Retrieved crashed material.
And he was saying definitively they know of 4 alien species. Like, he's saying they're real.
Right. Now, whenever I pressed him and asked him, at least in that setting, he did not say that he personally has seen these, right? But he described the 4 different types of aliens: the Greys, the Nordics, the Insectoids, and the Reptilians that are commonly referred to in the UFO community.
You know what I love about this video is that the person added glowing eyes to the Nordic dude, because if you didn't, it's just some blonde guy.
Just some blonde dude, yeah.
And that's what I love about so there are people who believe that one of the alien species we encounter are these Nordics. They're like tall, blonde, white people. And I'm just thinking like Sven is a Swedish Air Force pilot, and he crashes one of their experimental vessels. And then as he's exiting it, some farmer sees him and he's like, "It's an alien!" And he's like, I'm literally just Swedish Air Force. And they're like, the Nordic aliens from Sweden. Now, come on. Like, I don't understand how people could have witnessed aliens that look just like Swedish people or Norwegians and then have decided that they were aliens.
Well, if they see him on board alien craft, that would do it.
No, but it's just like,
You're very tall.
you know, if I woke up and I was in some like strange hovering craft and there was just a bunch of like random white dudes with black hair, I wouldn't be like, aliens are white people with black hair. I'd be like, oh, humans have built hovercraft, okay?
Well, there's some distinctions for sure. I mean, all of these, and by the way, people who researched ufology for a long time, these are precisely the 4 that we would expect Davis to acknowledge.
But could it just be he's just saying what you want to hear?
I doubt that he would do that. He's a very serious individual. He and Hell Putoff have been in the... They've had access to projects, knowledge of projects, and been working behind the scenes with the government, various institutions, private and public, on this for a long time. And they're very serious scientists, both of these guys, highly credentialed. And
do you believe that these 4 alien species are real?
I would say, for me personally, the first 3, absolutely 100%.
Not the
are real.
reptilian ones.
I'm not sure about reptilians. A lot of people talk about reptilians, but there's actually quite a lot of, I would say, anecdotal evidence for the existence of the Greys, of the Nordics, and of the insectoids, or what the late he's not dead yet, Dr. David Jacobs calls insectilins, which are like they're sometimes referred to as the mantis beings. And these are encountered, especially the Greys and the mantis beings, are actually encountered quite often on board vessels, on board alien vessels. And the Nordics aren't just, it's not just like you're looking at Scandinavian people, they're telepathic. All communication with these things is telepathic.
And I've heard that they don't exactly look like a human.
No, there's some subtle differences, yeah.
They would not just blend into the population.
No.
And that's at least, and I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just saying that's what I've been told.
What if they're just people from the future?
I think that's an interesting thought experiment, right? That what we're experiencing are future generations of humans who have mastered time travel. And if you mastered time travel today, wouldn't you want to go back and see what was going on in
well, you'd have
history? I would.
You'd have to.
I'd want to. I'd want to go back and see, hey, I want to see what the Pharaoh really looked like.
Okay,
I want to see what
confounds me, though, as someone who's not just a skeptic, but someone who just straight up doesn't believe in aliens. If that were true, would the powers that be in the intelligence agencies really just come right out and talk about it so openly?
They don't, though.
Well, we just heard that.
Well, this guy's former, isn't he?
Well, no, I mean...
You're never
he's
former
still,
intelligence.
Well, I mean, what's happened
okay,
is
fair point.
we've had 2 hearings now, and we've had whistleblowers come forth, like David Grush. And they have forced the conversation into the public arena. They forced the conversation. Then you have guys like Congressman Burlison and his colleagues who are fighting for disclosure. Without that battle, without that effort, you wouldn't be hearing about any of this. You wouldn't have these guys coming forward. You wouldn't have Eric Davis coming forward and making these declarations. I wouldn't necessarily call it a declaration. He was answering your question. But this is a new environment. We're in a new space now, post hearings, post UAP hearings, and so I think 5 years ago I would have agreed with you, but that's just not the case anymore.
I think the reason they don't say it is because, just put it this way, how would you feel if you woke up and realized you were in a rat cage your whole life and everything you knew was just some stupid rat experiment for somebody, Like when we look at rats in a cage in a lab, we pity them. What if everything you've ever done in your life, everything you hoped for, your dreams, you woke up tomorrow and you knew was completely meaningless. The research you've done, the religion you held, everything was just totally nonsense.
So that you're living in a simulation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, or like, what if, you have the rat utopia experiment? They put all the rats in a box and gave them food and water and then watched what happens, and the rats had no idea. What if that's what we're in? They wouldn't want to tell you because you'd lose your mind.
I think they would want to tell you. That's why I think that this is a whole alien
why though?
deception.
Why would they?
Demoralize the population.
It's not just demoralizing. You'd stop working. People would. I mean, if you're the king of the rats in the rat experiment, and you like your luxuries and your boats, you don't want the people to wake up and realize that they're rats in a box who'd stop working. You want them to keep working for you.
Yeah. You want them to continue to be non-player characters.
Yeah. I jokingly told Joe Rogan that the reason the globalists want a one world government is because we can't join the Galactic Federation until we have a unified governing body. Because who is the Galactic Federation going to negotiate with? Russia or the United States? It would just cause problems. And Joe responded with, I don't think there's a Galactic Federation. I said, Joe, I know I'm kidding. Yeah. But now I'm not kidding. The Galactic Federation won't let the Earth enter because we're a what is it called? There's a term for this. There's the degrees of civilization or whatever.
Yeah, Michio Kaku talks about this.
Type 1,
Type
Type
1
2.
civilization.
And we're like, type 0 is
Yeah.
like when your planet unifies under one governing authority.
Yeah.
So we're like not even there.
No.
We're just a bunch of...
Type 1 is
What
when
definition of the who's?
Type 1 is you use the output of your entire, you can manage the star that you are orbiting.
Dyson sphere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Type 2 is where you can manage the power in your galaxy, I think, or no, in your solar system. And then after that, it goes up from there, but it basically gets to the point. I think Type 4 was where you can basically transcend
Kardashev
normal
scale.
physics. That's what it is, the Kardashev scale?
I think. A Type 1 civilization is able to access all the energy available on its planet and store it for consumption. Type 2 can consume a star's energy through the use of a Dyson sphere, and a Type 3 can capture all the energy emitted by its galaxy and every object within it. Yeah, but like, why would we assume a Type 3 civilization exists? Have we witnessed ever through a telescope a galactic species?
But everything's really far away, man.
You can't talk about this phenomenon, though, as if we're not encountering it. That's the difference. You can't say that this is just theoretical, that maybe what these whistleblowers are talking about is real. No, many people at this point have experienced the phenomenon up close and personal, have seen craft. The government has admitted, at the very least, that that some of the footage that was leaked by the New York Times back in 2017 is authentic footage, and so far has not been able to debunk at least two of those videos. I think, namely Gimbal and the Nimitz incident. I mean, these are legitimate mysteries, and this is technology. What we're seeing is technology. I mean, it's not
I think
figment.
all the aliens are demons.
Could be.
Why is that laughable?
Well,
Everything that you're saying sounds laughable
You're asking
to
the
me.
right person to answer that question.
Yeah, I laugh because that's the most common question that I get personally.
But why? But they could be just called by a different name,
Yeah, and I would say that we have reason to believe that some of them are at the very least demonic.
Well, what I mean by that is the Christian understanding of a demon, which is not a physical being and can appear to be whatever they want to deceive people.
Well, the Christian understanding, the traditional Christian understanding of a demon doesn't involve UFOs and technology either.
But it does involve deception.
It does
and
involve deception, certainly.
apparition.
Yeah, I mean, that takes us down a very intricate path. There's a difference between the Western perspective, the Western Christian perspective of a demon, and then if you're going to be very specific to the biblical perspective of a demon, those are very two different things. So in the West, Christians in the West will identify anything that's scary or grotesque or nefarious as a demon or demonic in general, whereas in Hebrew cosmology, there's a very narrow description. A demon is literally and exclusively the disembodied spirit of a dead giant.
An unclean spirit.
An unclean spirit, yeah, within the context of the biblical narrative. So we have a different definition.
Of the Nephilim, right?
That's right.
So the dead,
Precisely.
the spirit that remains after the crossbreed between an angel and a human.
Yeah.
And then what is an angel?
Well, I mean,
that same
are we talking within the context of the biblical narrative?
So as you described the demon as the spirit of the Nephilim, is that what it is?
Yeah, in
what would
Hebrew,
an angel-
according to Hebrew cosmology, yes, a demon is exclusively the disembodied spirit of a dead giant.
So then,
Nephilim.
So a Nephilim is a angel-human.
A Nephilim is a hybrid. It was the product of copulation between an angelic being and a human female.
Then what is the angelic being in that context?
Well, I would describe that angelic being as an extraterrestrial. I mean, in the Bible, you have, in the book of Job, we read that the sons of God, the morning stars, they shouted for joy when the foundations of the earth were laid. So that right there, we can understand from a biblical perspective that the angels pre-exist us. They're not from planet Earth. Their origin is not planet Earth. They come from somewhere else. They are therefore technically extraterrestrial.
That doesn't mean that they have a physical form, though. Just because they pre-exist us, in my opinion, they're purely intellectual, purely spiritual beings who don't have a physical form, and therefore, how would they be capable of having relations with a human female?
We're talking about angels here.
Is Nephilim in the modern Christian Bible?
Yes. Yeah,
And
Genesis. There's a famous reference to Nephilim in Genesis 6 or
Specifically
several.
as
There's
hybrids?
And the Book of Enoch.
It primarily comes from the book of Enoch.
But they're specifically referenced as hybrids between angel
In
and
the book of Enoch.
How does that reconcile if...
Right. So in the book of Enoch, there's these 200 watchers. They're called watchers. That reference is found in the biblical narrative as well in the book of Daniel. It's a very important reference. But in the book of Enoch, there's 200 watchers, and these are not earthly beings. These are heavenly beings. They're looking down at the earth, and they are enamored of human women, of the daughters of men, and they actually lust after them, according to the book of Enoch. So what I call the first cause of the watchers' transgression is lust. They're lusting after human women. And again, according to the book of Enoch, they concoct this plan that they're going to descend to the earth and they're going to marry. They're going to select a wife, each one of them, and they're going to marry these women, and then they're going to copulate with them and procreate through them. So all of this activity, I mean, it wouldn't make any sense if you didn't have a body. If there was no corporeal reality involved.
Just to quickly mention, the Book of Enoch was never included in the Old Testament or the New Testament, just to be clear, because that's something that's important to mention as well.
The Book of Enoch was never canonized, no, although it was adopted into the canons of the Tawahedo Orthodox Church and also the ancient Jewish Orthodox in Ethiopia. So, I mean, there was a lot of controversy about the Book of Enoch a long time ago. And it was,
just to clarify, in the King James Bible, it mentions Nephilim?
Yes.
And
several times.
Specifically as hybrids between angels and women?
Yes, Genesis 6. Well, it doesn't specifically say hybrids between angels and women. It talks about the sons of God, that they saw that the daughters of men were fair, were comely, and they married them. They took wives from among the daughters of men, and then there's a reference to the Nephilim. The Nephilim were in the earth in those days.
Mighty men.
I just asked because, Mary, your view is that angels are purely spiritual beings?
Yes.
How would the Bible describe angels taking wives if they were not physical?
Or eating with people. Like, what was the angel that met with Abraham?
Yeah,
for a meal.
But I feel
and with
like
Lot.
we're just putting a very reductive and human view over something that just transcends our understanding.
Well, it depends on what worldview you're coming from. What is the framework of your perspective? And if you're framing this within a biblical context, then it becomes a theological question. And we can, make references to certain things that angels do within the biblical narrative and make a theological case that angels do, in fact, have corporeal reality. They have physical bodies. They do things. They lust. I mean, lust is a real problem for me personally. If you have a being that's lusting but doesn't have a body, how does that work? I mean, how can you feel a sexual impulse without the equipment, so to speak? So that's why I call it the first cause of the Watcher's descent, of the Watcher's sedition, what amounts to sedition against the kingdom of heaven. They descend to the earth because they lust after human women and they desire to copulate with them and procreate through them.
But the fall of the angels was because of Satan's rebellion, which originated from pride.
Yeah, we're talking about two different scenarios. The Watchers is actually a different event. That's something that happens in the days of Jared, according to the book of Enoch.
Okay.
So the descent of these 200 watchers is a and by the way, this
Why was Enoch not included?
that's kind of a
was
difficult question to answer. The easy answer is because the Jews rejected the Book of Enoch in their canon, and I think that the reason why the Jews rejected it was because it testified of the man they had crucified, namely Jesus of Nazareth. The Book of Enoch, specifically, now the Book of Enoch is very complex. It's not just one. It's not one singular author. It's a compilation of texts, and the earliest portions of the Book of Enoch were written long before the birth of Christ, at least 300 years before the birth of Christ. But there's portions of Enoch that are dated that have a later date that are after Christ, and so it's not a singular author. It's not a singular manuscript. But the earliest portions of the Book of Enoch are foundational to Hebrew cosmology in the narrative of the Watchers, which comes from the first book of Enoch, the earliest manuscript, which is the Book of the Watchers, and then B, even to the eschatology of the writers of the New Testament, their view of the end times, their view of the role of the Messiah in the end times. Much of that comes directly from the Book of Enoch. So they were clearly influenced by the Book of Enoch. In fact, there's verses from the Book of Enoch, from First Enoch, that are literally copied and pasted verbatim in the New Testament, in the Book of Jude. So clearly, the writers of the New Testament were conversant with Enoch, and at least considered some of it, whether oral tradition or the written text, as scripture. And that actually was hotly debated. This was a matter of great contention in the early church. Many of the church fathers believed that the Book of Enoch was scripture, or at least had some value, and others did not. And there was a battle that took place, and ultimately they decided to not include it in the canon.
Do you think then that like these religious texts are actually more ancient aliens, as if like aliens visited Earth and then procreated with people and did stuff to Earth, or do you believe it actually is mystical, spiritual, etc.?
You mean any text, or are you specifically referencing the Book of Enoch?
The Bible. Like
Okay.
Abrahamic view of religion and faith.
Well, I personally would say that the premise of ancient astronaut theory is true. Biblically speaking, the premise that mankind has indeed been interacting with extraterrestrial beings since the beginning. I mean, the Bible would affirm this enthusiastically. The text of Scripture affirms this. In fact, this is part of the problem that we've had, because in the beginning we were deceived by one of these beings, namely Satan, the dragon, the devil, this nefarious person that's never actually named in the Bible. So I think, again, the premise of ancient astronaut theory is true. But then I would disagree with, the aliens having a hand in building the pyramids and things like that. Although I do believe personally that the Enochian tale, the narrative of First Enoch, specifically from the Book of the Watchers, the earliest portion, is historically true. I personally believe that. I do believe that 200 watchers descended to the earth and took wives from among the daughters of men, copulated with them. The women conceived and gave birth to giants. In fact, this general narrative is found all over the ancient world. I mean, there's a universal testimony. This is usually framed in the context of the Golden Age, or as the ancient Egyptians refer to it as Zep Tepi, the first time. And in every case, I mean, every primary ancient civilization has a legend like this: the gods descended to the earth.
And they were all 8 feet tall or something?
Well, the gods themselves, I'm not sure, but their progeny are most often described as giants.
Were they green?
I don't think so.
There's because you've got the jinns and the genies in the Middle East.
Yeah.
8 foot tall, green and blue. And then you've got Quetzalcoatl in Central America.
Yeah.
And so people, I've read questions about why different cultures on the other side of the planet have similar myths of similar beings.
Yeah. Well, specifically, when you talk about giants, and this story in general, the narrative that I just laid out, that the gods descended, cohabited with human beings, copulated with human women, and progenerated a race of giants, that is ubiquitous. That is ubiquitous across every major ancient civilization. Believed something like that general narrative.
Like the Hindus, they believed that?
Yes, they believe that the gods. I mean, they have in the Indian epics, the gods are engaged in an epic war with one another using advanced aerospace technology, which they call vimanas.
And then, of course, we know the Hellenistic religions believed that, was it like Zeus came down disguised as a duck or something and banged some lady?
And Hercules emerged.
Yeah.
It's the same basic narrative that you find in every ancient culture.
Yeah, but the Hellenistic religions are so weird. Like Zeus, what did he like? Turn himself into a duck, and then came down and like banged some woman. I'm not kidding.
They did all kinds of stuff like that. they were constantly involved in the lives of men.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand that myths are devised to transmit knowledge through time. So these stories are crafted.
Swan, sorry, not a duck.
Yeah, these stories are so bizarre. They're intentionally crafted this way so that they can be orally transmitted through time. And the people who transmit the myths think that they're just these. Well, in the ancient times, they believe them literally, but when in reality they encapsulate information, historical, scientific information. That's what myths are designed to do.
They can corrupt as well, and that's probably we call that the purple monkey dishwasher phenomenon.
You mean the myths can corrupt?
That just information transmitted from generation to generation corrupts. Without hard data preserving it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so then these stories that you're hearing, I mean, one of the arguments you hear a lot from atheists is that the Bible, or actually not even from atheists, but from Christians actually. So the interpretation, the converting of language in the Bible several times back and forth has resulted in certain words not being appropriate. Like some have argued that it's not 7 days, it's 7 eras or 7 eons, or days was just a statement of a unit of time.
You mean in regard to the creation days of Genesis? Yeah,
this is one example where people say
that's true.
That it doesn't mean 7 days; it means
there's dispute about that. I mean, you have young Earth creationists who believe that the Earth is literally 6,000 years old, and then you have old Earth creationists who believe that the Earth is probably billions of years old, and they have a different interpretation based on the text. Based on a different interpretation of the words.
Imagine if you described modern technology to any, like, North Sentinelese person, right? Showing them this. Or, let's just put it this way. All technology is completely wiped out. Just gone. And we wake up one day and we're in the middle of the woods and we're buck naked. And you've got a newborn kid and the kid's growing up. Kid's 10 years old. And you're trying to explain to this kid how life used to be. And you'd say, we had these things we called screens and computers. You could literally just press buttons. There's a button. We don't have buttons anymore. I mean, how do you describe what a button is? It's a little thing that you push down, it goes in, it comes out, sending information, telling a machine. And on the screen, you could see anywhere in the world. What are they going to tell? What story will you get out of that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a witch with a cauldron looking into a reflection of water and seeing the land of Oz.
That's right. I agree.
So
I think, and if we can take an example from the Bible. I mean, in the Bible, you have these flying objects called the chariots of God or the chariots of Israel, and they show up on several occasions. And clearly, these are, in my estimation, these are advanced aerospace vehicles. I mean, somebody is piloting them, and in the ancients thought of them as a chariot with fiery horses or a fiery chariots of fire,
rockets.
And well, I mean, how would you? A chariot was the most advanced mode of conveyance in the ancient world. So they have no concept of combustion, right?
They have no word for plane.
They have no word for airplane or rocket or anything like that. The only thing that flies in the sky are birds. So how do you describe this advanced aerospace vehicle that you're seeing? Well, what's the most advanced vehicle of conveyance that you have to reference? And that would be a chariot. But these chariots fly. So if a chariot flies, why does it? Last time I checked, horses don't fly. Obviously, I think that Iron Age people are seeing things and they're conveying them in the way that seems most accurate to them. And I think in some instances we've made the mistake of interpreting some of that literally. I don't believe in flying horses. I think what they were seeing was advanced aerospace vehicles.
I'm confused because my assumption from text like that is not that they're describing it in a way that's culturally relevant to them, but that it was presented to them in a way that was culturally relevant and understandable to them. So they would see chariots because it was intended for them to see that.
I see what you mean.
Like the way that angels appeared to people is not, this is in the Catholic view, it's not the way they actually look because they don't have a physical form. They appear to you in a way that communicates their nature in a way that humans can understand.
This ascribes to angels metamorphic powers. They might as well be genies, and I don't believe that. I think they're not all that different from us. And in fact, I write about this in my book, Birthright. But I think that we are the younger sibling in the family of God, and that angels are our angelic elder siblings, and we're not all that different. In fact, we're so alike that we can procreate, we can breed.
Yeah, I just think all of that
produce offspring.
We got to go to chats, my friends. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Of course, the uncensored portion will be at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. But before we do, we got a great sponsor, ladies and gentlemen. It is Lear Capital. Check out LEAR Capital. And guys, gold and silver are critical. As they got a quote from me, gold and silver are critical. It's why I've been a long-time holder. I bought silver for the first time. It was a long time ago. It was actually because I was listening to Alex Jones, of all people. No joke. And it worked out really well because gold and silver have gone way up. So I'm curious if you guys out there have been watching gold prices. They jumped to $3,300. Some estimates, Goldman Sachs has it predicted to rise upwards of 4,500 or more next year. The government can print, borrow. It can run recurring budget deficits. You guys can't do that. Your retirement, your savings, your pension, 401k, fixed income accounts do not get a bailout. And if there is going to be a cataclysm, you're going to want to have some hard stores of value. That also, did you know that gold and silver are excellent conductors, by the way? So Lear's pretty great. It's an education-first company. You got no pressure to buy. You get a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. Over 25 years in the business, almost 30 now. And they got over 3 billion in trusted transactions, thousands of 5-star reviews, lots of gold companies to choose from, but Lear is who I trust. And we're working on something behind the scenes. I don't want to say too much, but I seriously think that gold and silver are fantastic. In fact, I will add to that, I have copper. This is not a joke. I have a bunch of copper, too.
Gold skateboards.
I don't know about that, but I legit have copper. It's not worth that much. It's like $5 an ounce or something. Take a positive step toward protecting your wealth, my friends. My friends at Lear Capital can help you. So check out call 1-800-489-6450 or go to leartim.com, LEARTIM.com for your free gold and silver investor kit. Learn how easy it is to own gold in your IRA or delivered to your door. As a special offer for my viewers, first-time buyers can get up to $15,000 in bonus gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Again, that's 800-489-6450 or go to leartim.com. Shout out. Thanks for sponsoring the show, guys. We really do appreciate it. You guys, make sure you check it out. Let's grab some of your Rumble rants and super chats before we go to that uncensored portion. Shane H. Wilder says, with the Coinbase hack, Trump needs to look into the KYC regulations. All of the data stolen was info required by KYC and is enough for identity theft. Interesting. All right. Matt Ride says, right, the former FBI director doesn't know what 86 means. There was a good comment. Someone said that it's a reference to 8 miles out and 6 feet under, and it was a mob term from Old Vegas. Makes sense. Makes sense. Concrete Haiti says, the Second Amendment is absolute, and the founders stated as much. No exclusions or excuses. It's the only right so written. I think that if we want to stop people from having nuclear weapons or biological weapons, then you've got to amend the Constitution. Because you can't make the argument that they didn't understand. Nope, they said arms, so.
It is true that, like, nuclear weapons are prohibitively expensive. Not that they're totally unreachable, but nation states have a difficult time coming up with the resources. So, and it's, again, it's not saying that
mass destruction. I don't want to explain too much, but there was a gentleman who made a extremely powerful radioactive weapon, which I don't want to get into because it wasn't difficult for him to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's grab some more. Dick Dickerson says, Republic, Missouri checking in. Love our congressman. Right on.
Oh, thank you.
Schlip says, Rep. Burlison, can we count on your support for getting the full Hearing Protection Act and Short Act passed?
I'm working very hard to get
just slide it in there. It's one piece of paper. Just one piece of paper.
I've been since we had our conference in May. I went to the microphone and told the speaker and all the leaders, we got to do this, and I got an applause.
I mean, look,
right on.
This is something that the Republicans should get behind. Anyone that says that they're pro Second Amendment, they should be getting behind the Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act. These are very basic rights that the Second Amendment is clear about. So.
Let's go. Derposaurus Rex says, Phil, have Adam D. wear his cape for the San Diego concert.
I don't know. You can never, ever tell what Adam's going to wear at any one particular show. It might be a cape, it might be a tutu, it might be short shorts, but it will likely be ridiculous.
Mechanical Mercenary says, call your congressman and demand a vote on Short Act and Shush Act, bills that would remove silencers, short-barreled rifles from the NFA. Keep calling and leave messages.
Absolutely.
It is the stupidest thing imaginable that short-barreled rifles and suppressors are regulated as such, because these are exactly what you want for home defense. If you look, we're out in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to pull out like a Remington, long shotgun or anything. I'd like to use a short-barreled rifle with a suppressor for safety reasons, literally. And you can't do it. Absurdity.
It's crazy.
Yep. I think it's because liberals genuinely think that suppressors go pew, pew, pew.
The SBR inclusion on the NFA was because they initially were going after pistols. And then the people were like, no, we don't want pistols to be regulated like that. And so the short barrel rifles thing was a compromise, which is ridiculous because the point is, you don't want to be able, or the argument was, you don't want to be able to conceal a rifle or conceal a gun, but they couldn't get handguns onto it. So initially it was about getting handguns. Then they walked it back, and the compromise was rifles with a barrel length under 16 inches, which is ridiculous.
It just makes the laws hard to understand for average citizens, and that's what it's intended for. Right?
Yep.
They like it because most people don't want to run afoul, and so.
Isn't it like if you put a foregrip on a pistol, it can turn into an SBR?
If you have an AR pistol and you can have an angled foregrip or a hand stop, but if you put an actual foregrip, then you are actually taking it from being a pistol and making it an any other weapon, which needs to be registered under the NFA.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and it only makes criminals out of legal, of normal Americans that want to exercise their rights legally.
Jack Rivers Poker, that's who brought it up. He said, 86 is from the Las Vegas mob, 8 miles out and 6 feet under, which is why it's commonly used in the service industry. It's from Old Vegas.
I didn't know that.
Well, there you go. I don't know if that's true or not, but a guy on the internet said it, so I'm going to believe it. What do we have here? Neglectful Sausage says, need a new TV show better than Ellie being a dad. Try Made in Abyss. It has a deep emotional ties between characters, a descent into madness with eldritch horrors, and an adventure to find family. Really? Yeah, I've skipped Last of Us 2, Season 2, because I knew it was bad already. Last of Us 1 was bad enough. Did you guys watch it?
It didn't get enough credit for how bad it was, actually.
I agree. I think the forced gay sex scenes they included in that movie, which aren't in the video game, really, really put it over the edge of bad. But,
So
they weren't like full on doing it, but I don't want to watch dudes kissing either. That just grosses me out. And most people who are more polite than me and they won't say it out loud. It's just gross. And that's episode 3. So
it was super controversial when it came out.
You had to put up with that to just watch the rest of the season.
And that's not in the game.
It's not in the game, and it's actually the opposite of what happened in the game. Like, in the game, you just encounter one of them who survived, who only says that he hates that guy, the dead one. So there's no implication that they were, like, gay lovers. There was just basically a glorified fan theory from what I've been able
Ellie's
to
a dad now.
Yeah.
How is she a dad? Like, what's the plot point? Her girlfriend gets pregnant somehow?
In the game, when she finds out that her GF is pregnant...
From some guy,
she gets angry because she's like, you're having a baby. This is a liability. We're in life or death situations constantly.
But in the show, she's like, I'm a dad.
Angry. Yeah, and in the show, they just were like, fuck it. Like, let's just rewrite the entire story and make, Ellie happy that this is happening, and they're going to be lesbian moms.
I do think it was
a lesbian mom and a lesbian dad. I don't know.
I do think it was cringe enough that that's the route they went with the video game. It's the end of the world, and LGBTQ rights are being upheld. Because
As if anyone would be gay after the apocalypse, right?
Well, it would be. It's gonna like The Handmaid's Tale might be like extreme, but yeah. I mean, like I'll put it this way, if a cataclysm happens and humanity's on the brink of extinction, yeah, it's going to be pretty authoritarian and militaristic.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And most people would want that too. If you're under those conditions, most people will look to a strong man and they'll align with whoever's.
But are there going to be a bunch of like lib women being like, I'm not having kids?
They'll die fast.
I think what people need to understand is what the word rape, where does it come from? It meant to steal. And when the Vikings would steal and destroy, we called that raping and pillaging. But along with that, they would take the women. And I heard a joke when I was in Norway. Do you guys want to hear it?
Sure.
A Norwegian man told me this joke. This is not, I was in Bergen, and I also ate whale, by the way. I did not enjoy it. I had a piece. And he said to me, you want to hear a joke? How come there's no attractive women in Britain? Because we took them all.
That might actually be true.
It is.
True.
That's his joke. And I was like, wow.
That's more like a statement than
Right. Yep. So I think if a cataclysm happened, it's going to be a bunch of just like barbarian dudes who are ripped, just taking women.
Tribal leaders. Yeah.
Prisons will become fortresses. Prisons,
Like
all those.
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
30% of all humans on the continent of Asia are related to Genghis Khan for a reason.
Yep.
You know?
So like in The Last of Us 2, people are I guess complaining about there's a scene where she chokes a guy out or something. Did you watch it?
I only know what happened in the game. I haven't watched the second season of the show because the first season sucked.
I'm gonna trigger every feminist. In that game, the idea of how old is she? Like a teenager, late teens.
In the second game, she's a young adult.
Yeah, the idea that some young adult female is going to take on like 15 adult men with rifles and clubs,
Goes full Rambo,
and win every time. It's just like, yeah, it's just...
Even the Abby character in the game was reamed because it's like, okay, she's buff, but she's a chick. That means she has like half the strength of the average guy who's not even a bodybuilder.
Yeah,
But she's
like the first game was
badass
good.
Villain.
Do you guys know what the game's about? Post-apocalypse.
I saw the first season, but
Fungus.
But the game is not as woke and weird as the show.
It's pretty. The second game is woken.
Right, it is, but the first one wasn't.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Hey, let's ruin the game, ruin the
But
story."
also, the first game was kind of woke and weird though, because I don't like the whole thing where they're having these little girls kissing. Like that's really.
That was an add-on.
Sounds
It was really.
Yeah,
That wasn't in the original release.
I'm pretty sure they released the game, and then they did a DLC where Ellie is a little girl in a gay relationship with another little girl.
Weird.
Yeah, they were like, let's just totally ruin it. Because the original story was like,
Gross.
a guy's daughter dies, there's a zombie apocalypse, they're fungus zombies, cordyceps, and then he finds this young girl and he protects her. And so for a lot of guys, it was like, I'm going to be a man and save this child. And then they turned it in. Then second game comes around, they're like, kill the main character and to have a gay relationship.
Yeah.
I like the game Assassin's Creed. That's my.
Which one?
yeah,
I've played a lot of them.
What about the new one with the Black Samurai?
Have you played Assassin's Creed?
yeah.
Yeah, you must love it, like the Tree of Life is an actual machine and like the Apple of Eden,
Yeah, they were actually making reference to the Nephilim and the Valhalla.
And the movie was garbage.
Yeah.
The movie was awful.
The premise of the game, backstory is basically ancient aliens. Like all of the scripture and everything is like you find the Apple of Eden was actually a device, it was like a computer or something. Yeah. The Apple of Knowledge or whatever.
It's just a fun game to play.
It's a good game.
CyberAx says, my first indie game just released on Steam, Let's Nuke Mars.
Nice.
It was part of Based Game Games Jam I learned about in Timcast Discord. Get it now on Steam. Support Based Game devs. Epic.
Nice.
I'm working on my game. Working on it. I've taken the racism out of it, though.
Fair enough.
Yeah, now white...
Add it back in.
I don't know, I made the game less fun. But I'm adding bosses. I'm going to put big boss battles. You got to fight the cartels and stuff.
Next thing you got to make is a side scroller.
Yeah. I used to actually program video games back in the day. I've probably made like 15 different side-scroller games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cool. Long ones, too. Like, I made one game that had probably 40 minutes to an hour of gameplay.
That's nice.
For a side-scroller I made when I was 14 is kind of crazy. Yeah, and it was like, I don't know how to describe it. Side-scroller, you played a guy who was, for some reason, running through a bunch of factories where little monsters were, like, the factory was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like pistons that would smash you. It was fun.
That's cool.
Back in the day. Old multimedia fusion, we call
Tim,
it.
I didn't know you were a nerd.
Oh yeah, I used to do Flash programming too, but that was a bit harder, so I just switched to the easy stuff. Multimedia Fusion, very easy. All right, what do we got here? Blazalot says, I'm a few days late, but when Tim said he had a surprise he was working on since last night, I thought it was going to get the Gook song in full. I'm allowed to say that because I'm Korean, though, so you don't say that. You don't say those. That's my word. All right, what do we got? Let's see. MF Damien says, for all that's holy, the magnetic poles flip every so often, weakening the magnetosphere, but the axis of the Earth doesn't flip with them. The rate of travel from the poles has been accelerating. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Bill Dozer says, well, I enjoyed the time I spent this evening at my middle school child's Girl Scout bridging to Brownie Scout. I am sad I've missed 1 hour and 20 minutes of this conversation. Great guests. You can always watch it later.
Yeah, I have good news for you. It's on the internet.
It's on the internet. What have we here? Roman, 64M, says, since we have Congressman Eric on, can we take a moment to talk about Republicans screwing us over in the Ways and Means Committee, not allowing the Hearing Protection Act through? Call David Kustoff now. Wow, man, they're really...
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big
deal around here.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think Jason Smith, the chairman, would do it if he could get every member of the committee on board. And what I've been told is that not every member.
And this is the House Judiciary Committee or House Ways and Means?
Yeah.
House Ways and Means. Because I will be tweeting about that.
Right on. Well, my friends, it's about time for that uncensored portion of the show. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Thanks for hanging out. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. You can find the uncensored show at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Tim, do you want to shout anything out?
I have a book called Birthright. You can get it on Amazon. And a Book of Enoch. I wrote commentary and introduction to the Book of Enoch. You can find that on Amazon as well.
Did you ever do a documentary about it?
I've done documentaries on the subject, yes.
Oh, okay, right on. I want to watch it. That's why I was like, where can I find it?
Those documentaries are kind of hard to find now.
Oh.
Yeah. But I've got tons of content on YouTube about all this kind of stuff.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out. Rep Burlison, you want to shout anything out?
No, it's great to be on. I just really apprecight it. And
yeah, thanks for coming.
And this has been fun.
Shout out Congress.
Don't. Where can people find you?
Rep Eric Burlison on all the socials.
Yeah, that would be the funniest thing ever. Just want to give a shout out to Congress. Everyone's very happy with the work they're doing.
Yeah.
Love y'all. Yeah. Go subscribe to Pop Culture Crisis on YouTube and give us a follow on Rumble if you haven't already. We go live every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can send me validation on Instagram at Mary Archived or send me hate on X. That is also Mary Archived.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record is entitled Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, Deezer, and YouTube. Don't forget, the left lane is for crime. Call your representative. Tell them to make sure that the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act are both in the Omnibus Bill, because it's just slide them right in there. That's all I got to do. Just slide them right in.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.